Thanks, Josh. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is David Porter. I'm the CEO and president of Porter Consulting. Let's talk about how to make the college experience extraordinary with anytime dining. A little bit about our firm, very little bit. As many of you know, we've been, over the past 20 years, our team of 12 team members, associates. We've been on close to 400 campuses in North America. Every time I look at this graphic, I kind of take my breath away. We've actually engaged higher ed clients in all 50 states, most of the provinces of Canada and the U.S. Virgin Islands. I'm an author. We wrote a book, The Porter Principles. If you have the book, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is referenced in this from the book. If you don't have a book, we'd be happy to, if you follow up with Josh after, we'd be happy to send you a complimentary copy. We really stand alone in North America, where we pioneered what we refer to as the next generation 24/7 dining and learning experience on campuses, which really transcends dining. A central part of this is anytime dining. We have a recipe, so to speak, to use that metaphor, of the various ingredients of really what makes the combination of elements in an anytime dining program successful. They're not all 24/7. We certainly have programs that go till midnight or 10 p.m. or 9:30 throughout the week and the weekends. But we really want to talk about what the process is, what we've characterized as something that really is a game changer on college campuses. The reason I like to talk about it's kind of fun to do the impossible, I'll be very honest, I stole this quote from Walt Disney. I gave him credit for it. It's on the front of my book. But many of our clients, when we've developed these programs for a campus, some of the first words out of their mouth are, you know, David, this is impossible. I just did a podcast. We're doing a new series called Game Changers in video podcasts, and we just did one yesterday with David May, the Associate Vice President of Business Services at University of New Hampshire, and he talked about how when he read our report 11 years ago, he said, there's no frickin' way we're going to do this. And he also went on to say that it was the single most important decision he's made in his 38-year career in terms of how it impacted this program successfully on his campus, that they ended up embracing those recommendations and eventually moving forward with it. And I encourage you all to keep an eye out in your emails for that podcast, Game Changers in Higher Education. Josh will be sending those out over the next week or two. So what is social architecture? It's really a phrase that we've coined. It's a process that we employ on our campuses. And social architecture for us really is all about student engagement, the ability to create an environment that brings students together. And student engagement yields student success. If we go to just about any website on a college and university campus and not even look at the dining portion, but look at the strategic goals of the campus, the president's vision statement, we often see the words collaborative environments, student engagement, student retention, graduation rates, recruitment and retention, and that's all about student success. And so we start with the premise that student success is paramount, and then we work backwards on a college campus to determine how do we go about organizing the dining program to create more opportunities for students to be successful. I like to refer to this whole experience and dining for us is really ground zero on a college campus, and quite frankly, I believe dining is, if it's used properly and organized properly, and that's a big if, is probably on a day-to-day basis, and I emphasize day-to-day, probably the most potent catalyst, if it's organized properly, to bring students together, whether it's over a 24-hour period or an 18-hour period or a 12-hour period, to really create more opportunities to connect, more opportunities to serendipitously meet new friends, bump into somebody they didn't know, and sit down and have a conversation, maybe see somebody from a class, maybe look forward to going with a group of friends to dine together. I mean, there's really nothing more social than eating together. And this slide here talks about empathy, this classroom outside of the classroom, where students really also learn I believe, as critically important skills as they learn in the classroom academically. Everybody on this phone call right now, this GoToMeeting webinar, has the skills, has interpersonal skills, knows how to interact with a person on a face-to-face basis, knows how to see how what they say affects the other person's feelings. And quite frankly, these are the skills that are important for young people to develop so they can be successful in life, which is something in our new world of iPhones and droids and all of these opportunities to connect electronically. You really don't learn any of these skills over an iPhone or a droid in terms of these interpersonal face-to-face skills. Sherry Turkell is an author who wrote a book, The Loss of Conversation. And I encourage you all to look that up or Google it and even purchase it. It talks about how these devices in the hands of an 8 to 12-year-old, or all of us to some degree, but especially a young person, actually delays the development of empathy in a young person, and the importance of really developing these skills. And so dining, and what we're going to describe today as dining and learning, really becomes an opportunity that transcends dining in terms of contributing to the success of the student, making it more compelling in terms of the experience, the college experience that these young people actually have. So what is social architecture? Our definition of social architecture is the intentional programming and design of your dining program and those facilities in order to achieve the richest levels of on-campus student engagement, up to 24/7, to achieve even higher levels of student retention, to achieve even higher graduation, 4 to 6 year graduation rates, to reach the highest levels of student success academically, in terms of their GPA, socially, in terms of their interpersonal skills and the development of their networking skills, while significantly contributing to the achievement goals and mission of your university. So it really, the dining experience really transforms the social experience, and this is all what Anytime Dining is about, is creating a social experience with food as opposed to a dining experience that can be a little bit social. And what we've learned over the past 25 years is when we can really transform what historically has been more of a dining transaction into more of a social transaction with dining, that changes the game. That's as compelling, if not more compelling, to a young person to want to be there socially as it is having the food there so that they can have their nutritional needs met. And combining those two elements becomes a very potent cocktail so students want to be there. You know, we all know about mandatory meal plans, and we certainly aren't a firm that goes around suggesting you shouldn't have mandatory meal plans. However, the only time mandatory meal plans are a problem is when students don't want to be on them. So what we want to do is look to what kind of a program in terms of hours of operation, menu variety and selection, the aesthetics of the venue, the experience the students get there, the social experience, the access not only Monday through Friday but Saturday and Sunday. What do we have to do to create that extraordinary value so students want to be there? And the fact that the meal plan, that it's mandatory, is moot. David May, in his podcast yesterday that we recorded, indicated that the first year after his new program that he implemented, based on the work that we did for him, they sold an additional 1,000 voluntary meal plans. In the second year after it was implemented, they sold another 1,000 meal plans. So now 2,000 voluntary meal plans had been sold by the end of the second year. 10 years ago, they sold 6,000 meal plans. In his podcast, he's going to talk about how today they just sold almost 12,000 meal plans on an enrollment of 14,000 people. That's what this Anytime Dining can evoke, and the consequence of that is a very socially rich experience where the students want to be, whether they're an underclassman or an upperclassman. And really, it also it really helps change the game or move the needle a little bit, or in some cases a lot, when it comes to how people view, parents and young people view the opportunity to come to a particular school. And believe it or not, dining can make a difference. in a positive way and a negative way, not in all cases, but certainly what we want to do is create the anytime dining, so not only it transforms the on-campus social landscape and the college experience, but it gives the institution a competitive advantage as well when it comes to recruiting students. So we've talked about student success as a consequence. In this day and age, to have a safe, wholesome on-campus environment up to 24/7 is really where a lot of these students are. We used to talk many years ago about the student clock. We still talk about the student clock, which we all know is a little bit different than the clock of probably most of us on this call right now professionally, in terms of when they might want to eat their first, second, fourth, fifth meal of the day. We also want, but over the past 8 years, we've gone through a revolution revolution in terms of how high schoolers and middle schoolers, and not only how, but when they socially interact. And with the exception of hopefully having parents or adult supervision saying you can't go out after midnight most nights, that doesn't stop them from wanting to communicate late into the evening or even the early morning hours, maybe on a weekend or a Friday or a Saturday night. So these young people, when they graduate from high school, have already established a pattern of communicating almost more in line of what we also thought was previously the maybe exclusive domain of a college student. Once they get there, they're going to kind of start living a little bit differently. So for a school to be where these students are when they get to the campus with a venue that's open 24/7, and some schools have libraries or even learning commons that fit this bill, or even rec centers. But the combination of elements with the social, with the dining, with the meal plans, with the value, with a learning commons feel to it, it completely changes the game. And students, it's almost like moths to a flame in terms of wanting to be there. And certainly David May and others we've interviewed and other examples we can give on this call and after the call are great examples of exactly how students react in such a positive, compelling way to want to stay on campus. So unlimited access to world-class healthy dining. And healthy dining not only has to do with the type of organic food or non-GMO food or the allergy-free, the 8 or 9 categories of allergy-free food, the display cooking, the made fresh right in front of the students. It also has to do with the social interaction, the healthy social engagement that goes along with it. And yes, we're talking about having a full menu variety and selection available when we talk about 24/7 anytime dining, or when we talk about, till midnight or till 10:30 continuously. So let's talk about 24/7. So if a venue was open 24/7, that would mean all of these menu items would be available 24/7. So a student could go in there and get sushi at 3 o'clock in the morning, or a salad bar, or an entree. They could go in there at 10 o'clock in the morning and get a hot breakfast, lunch. They could get breakfast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It really never stops. Now, there's also a facility side of that, and it's important to design these facilities so we can anticipate what the requirements of the design will be in order to functionally support, whether it's 18 hours a day or 24 hours a day. We know as professionals there will be predictably slow periods of the day in the evening and the early morning hours. So it's important, and my partner Alvin is a world-class designer. We design facilities that meet this bill, fit this bill, where the proper pieces of equipment are specified for the front counter, the back counter, the kitchen, so that you can go to a cook-to-order mode during predictably slow periods of the day to be more efficient with labor and provide menu. So that we can organize these platforms to still have all the pizzazz and the entertainment value of display cooking, but do it in a way where they're not labor islands unto their own requirements, where it just doesn't make sense to keep these platforms open because of the burden of labor. But when they're organized a little bit differently and you can share labor during slow periods, it goes a long way to make sure that the outcome is moves the needle in a financially positive direction as well. We talked about the value of the development of interpersonal skills, face-to-face interaction for the students. We talk about higher acceptance yield rates. We've had universities report back to us that their acceptance yield rates, the number of students who actually accept and go to a school where they've been sent an acceptance letter, has increased 2 or 3 or 4 points because of the value of room and board, because of what they witness not only when they visit the campus, but when they kind of compare one school against the other in terms of room and board costs, what you get at one school versus the other. And these programs are really unprecedented with the value it offers a student living on campus, and also to the parents as well in terms of what it's going to financially cost to support their student. We talked about higher student retention rates. Well, I think most of us are keenly aware of the fact that what really helps, probably one of the most important factors in moving that needle with retention rates, is how successful the institution is in about a 6-week or 45-day period of having students successfully start to connect to one another and start to make friends on a person-to-person, personal, classmate-to-classmate level. And the more successful we are at doing that, the more likely that student is to return as a sophomore. And again, these dining venues where the students want to be more frequently throughout the day and the evening, making more connections and reinforcing those opportunities, just like the great room or living room or kitchen in your home. You know, we all solve the problems of the world and have our friends and family members connect in our kitchens and our homes and our family rooms. This is just a much grander version of that, and the role that it plays. You might have a 3,000 bedroom home or 2,000 bedroom or 13,000 bedroom with multiple venues, but these venues still serve the purpose, when they're designed properly, of meeting that need and connecting everybody in a family, very meaningful manner. It really produces also unprecedented levels of resident and non-resident student collaboration, as evidenced at George Mason University, University of New Hampshire, University of Mary, Simon Fraser University, University of New Mexico, Liberty University, University of Ottawa, just to name a few. In every one of those cases, the programs that we developed, the anytime dining programs, using that kind of unique recipe of ingredients and putting them together in the proper manner, has produced unprecedented levels of voluntary meal plan sales from students living off campus with full kitchens, upperclassmen who voluntarily choose to buy these plans, which then they choose to dine on campus, which as a consequence to that, there's more intermingling of off-campus and on-campus students to create even a richer experience. And of course, the collaboration yields innovation, and the collaboration is the opportunity to sit down and either work on a project together or just meet and make some friends. Protects the financial contribution to the institution. You know, most of us, let me get back to that Walt Disney quote, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. Basically, when we talk about the ability to go to a campus and not raise the price of the meal plan, whatever is dialed into the comprehensive fee for that institution, and expanding the program with anytime dining, in many cases up to 24/7, sometimes it's till midnight, with an unlimited menu opportunity, with a full menu 24/7, with no break periods between lunch and dinner and breakfast and lunch, and then a very limited Spartan set of offerings after 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. I'm talking about having a full variety of menu options 24/7, and then actually be able to increase the financial remuneration back to the school. And that's one of those reactions we get from our clients, but David, that's impossible. But when we do the diligence, when we present the financial pro formas, revenue and expense projections, we build the staffing matrices, when we present the program with all the due diligence associated with putting together a business plan, you can see it, you can believe it, and then when it's implemented, you can actually realize it. I talked about the growth of full voluntary meal plans, and at least with a school with a residential student population, many of our clients are all commuters, but with residential populations, what better indication that the program is a success when students who do not have a mandatory meal plan requirement voluntarily purchase a meal plan at the $4,000 to $5,000 a year level. So when these students voluntarily purchase, whether they're an underclassman who is moving into a venue that doesn't require a meal plan or moving off campus. And when these students voluntarily choose to purchase a meal plan to the tune of $4,000 or $5,000 a year, there's really nobody that can dispute that that student feels that there's a tremendous value in doing that or having mom and dad do it or financial aid. And that speaks volumes to what is being done right with your program. Higher graduation rates, the students stay longer, they're more successful, and they're more successful when they graduate and after they graduate. So really it's a choice. You know, there's many ordinary options. This is very extraordinary. We talk about good to great. This is great. And it's not necessarily rocket science. I mean, not for us anyway. We do it every day. It's different. There's a big element of change involved. And really change sometimes is the biggest obstacle that we all have to deal with. Here's a little tongue-in-cheek cartoon. You know, here's a client, you know, David Porter talking to a client, or a client talking to David Porter. I want you to find a bold and innovative way to do everything exactly the same way it's been done for 25 years. Obviously a little bit of tongue-in-cheek there, but that's usually not the charge that we're given. But usually when we present a set of recommendations that are quote-unquote extraordinary, we're not on anybody's radar screen, but very practical, then all of a sudden it becomes, well, maybe we don't have to change, maybe we don't have to change as much, what if it doesn't work? Kind of all of those self-protective aspects of the status quo kick in. So it really is something that requires a lot of due diligence, a lot of evidence, a lot of commitment and courage to move through that and implement these changes for your campus. I want to make one thing clear. This is not all you care to eat. No, it certainly in some ways resembles it in terms of what we're talking about, but it is not all you care to eat. This is anytime dining. I define all you care to eat as whether you pay a door rate or you use a block meal or you use one of your 19, 14, or 10 meals a week, whether you pay the door rate with cash or whether you use declining balance to pay a predetermined door rate. You pay that, you swipe that, you go in. It's all you care to eat. You go out and you have to pay to get back in. That's all you care to eat. Anytime dining is literally like a health club membership. You buy the plan, there are no units, there are no 19 meals, there's no 14 or 10, there's no blocks, there's no declining balance. It gives you unlimited access. This also gets into how much food gets consumed. Believe it or not, and we've got the stats to demonstrate this, students consume less food on anytime dining plans. When we interviewed Mark Craner at George Mason University, and Josh is sending that video podcast out, I think, later this week, Mark talks about how he's got a 24/7 anytime dining program, and the students with unlimited meal plans, they can come 1,000 times a day if they chose to, eat as much or as little as they want, consume 11.5 meals a week. Say it again, they consume 11.5 meals a week. The students with 19 meal plans, because they can still, some of those are grandfathered in, it's about $30 more or less than the 24/7 unlimited plan, they consume 14 meals a week. So it's the meal plan, not the hours or it's the meal, not the method of service, it's the meal plan that encourages overeating in many cases and overconsumption, not the method of service. So hours of operation are critical. You know, we want to be open when students want to use the venue. Oftentimes research can reveal that. Well, every time research reveals that, interviews, focus groups, surveys. Allow students to eat what they want when they want, based on their schedules, their class blocking, their sleep schedules, their work schedules, their time on or off campus. They're the ones that we want to go to mom and dad or go to their financial aid counselor and say, I want to stay on this plan. Let's say you've got 3,000 resident students. You've got a 3,000 person sales force. They're either going to say yes or no. They're either going to complain to somebody that's helping them with their financial support, say, yes, I want to stay on this plan, or no, I want to get off of it. So we need to make sure we design programs that meet the needs of these students. We're asking a lot of them financially, and what we're giving in return, well, quite frankly, for the university or for the college, it's like a printing press for money. So it's worth trying to figure out what we need to do to meet the needs of these students. An on-campus, safe, wholesome environment, 7 days a week where these students can come and go. Continuous service, all menu items throughout the day and the evening. No day parts with limited dining during non-peak hours. You know, we've gone to plenty of campuses where they say, David, we're open from 7 in the morning till midnight. But then when we peel back the onion, they serve breakfast from 7 to 9:30, then continental breakfast or close until 11. Then they serve lunch from 11 to 2:30, and then a light lunch or close between 2:30 and 4:30. And then they serve dinner from 4:30 to 7 or 8, and then they have very limited options between 8 and midnight. So it really isn't what we're talking about in terms of an important aspect of the ingredient. High quality food, extended menu and variety, versus display cooking and the entertainment. I'll just go through these quickly, you know, just to reinforce the level of quality and product that we're talking about making available either 24/7 or 18/7. Here's a good one. In many of these venues at Colgate University, and we've done it at many venues, many of our clients actually had a Starbucks made part of the anytime dining venue, so students, as part of their program, as part of their meal plan, without paying a premium, they could go in there and get a caramel macchiato, a latte, or an espresso as part of a Starbucks program in that venue. That psychologically, that creates enormous value for anytime dining where the students want to be there. A meal plan is nearly nothing more than a method of payment. What we really need to make sure of is that we're providing them with the venue and the services and the value and the experience that we expect them to want to use this meal plan as a method of payment for. Social amenities are important if we want to make this a social space as well as a dining space. Even coming up with student life, we're working with more student life directors to come up with student life programs and help build dining around that so that it gives students something to look forward to, especially on weekends. You know, just some easy examples: game day Saturday, college game day Saturday, and Sunday NFL day. You know, it doesn't take a lot to come up with some menu items to make part of the meal plan on a Saturday and Sunday, along with a great brunch to give these young people something to look forward to. So having it feel more like a lounge or a social space or a study space, even in some cases with gaming. You know, sometimes, and this is a little tongue-in-cheek too here with my lipstick on a pig, we've been in venues that are brand new, LEED certified, you know, spectacular venues, basically with a state-of-the-art 1960s or 1970s dining program in this spectacular venue. And what I mean by that are the hours of operation, those limited hours for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the downtime between the meals. You know, buttoning the place up at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, or offering something very limited later or someplace else. Having meal plans that are 19, 14, or 10, or block meals, 210 per semester, 175. Anything that resembles that, as far as I'm concerned, is probably a little bit dated. I'm being kind. But we really need to come up with a way to create that, repackage that, maintain the financial integrity of the program, grow the financial value of the program while increasing the return to the campus. So again, student engagement and student success. I'm going to click through these. These are examples of colleges where it's been done. Many people say, where have you done this, David? Where have you seen this done? And certainly any of these folks are available for feedback or comment on their success and what they've seen happen. Montana State University has talked about how since they've opened this program on their campus, they're in the state system, other universities, their enrollment's declining. At Montana State, it's increasing. And they think this is an important part of what creates an exceptional value for the students to choose to go to this institution. And it's not just a new facility, it's the program elements that go along with it. I'm going to click through here. We see George Mason. They've sold over 1,600 voluntary meal plans. And they said 40%, 40 to 60% of the students who are on mandatory meal plans voluntarily buy a more expensive meal plan. The beauty of that is that it grows your revenue base voluntarily, and it does nothing to your comprehensive fee because it's voluntary. It went from a bottom line of $1.3 to $5 million. There's a nice quote from Mark in terms of the growth and the financial performance. Colgate, 24/7. We did some follow-up. 85% of the freshmen said they they characterized the experience as exceptional to extraordinary. Those numbers were a lot lower before the anytime program, anytime dining. So it changes the game when it comes to the college experience. There's a nice quote from Joanne, excuse me, from Colgate. Montana State, I mentioned that, student satisfaction. They clearly use it as a recruiting and retention tool. We've got a video online for Ferris State where the admissions folks say when they come into the venue there, the Rock on campus, it's a seal the deal moment in terms of students making a decision to go to Ferris State. Here's a nice quote from Todd Gilletta. Liberty University, where the Mid-Atlantic Conference is starting on Sunday, they gave us, after we did the work for them, anytime dining 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. in less than a year after they implemented the new program, and they certainly spent a lot of money to renovate Reber Thomas. It's spectacular now. They were voted the best dining hall, residential dining hall by bestcolleges.com. There's some nice comments about Ferris State too. Ferris State was designated by TripAdvisor.com as a destination for tourists in the area, in the three-county area. I'm trying to watch the clock here, so I want to go through this. There's some more nice comments. And then just some nice slides here. There's Montana State. My partner Alvin designed these facilities. Again, the design needs to functionally support the program. Carolyn Watkins, the vice president, is on this call listening. Carolyn and I did a master plan at Montana State University. My partner Alvin designed this facility that you're looking at, and those two ingredients has produced unprecedented success on their campus. I'll go through these very quickly here. Make this available. You know, this PowerPoint is available to everybody on the call as well, and Josh will get it to you when we're done. Ferris State, there's the Rock. And they're beautiful, but the program, the hours, the menu, the meal plans, and again, it is kind of fun to do the impossible. Not that we set that as a challenge to make it impossible, but a lot of the reaction we get suggests that that's what people think, but we make the case and move it through, and people are delighted. So that concludes our webinar presentation, and I'd like to open it up now to questions. As Josh said earlier, anybody on the call would like to say something, just unmute your button, ask the question. There were questions submitted. If it didn't get answered during the webinar today, or if we don't answer it during the Q&A, I'd be happy to, if you'd like to contact Josh and set up a 10 or 15-minute call with me, I'd be happy to do my best to answer the questions you submitted in writing if we didn't get those answered during our webinar today. So thank you all very much. Any questions? Hey, let me go through some of the specific questions here we received. I'm going to assume the silences are none coming right out. One of the questions was staffing costs. Certainly what we'll do is we look at the staffing and how it's used and how it can be leveraged. We project those costs. We build staffing matrices so we know exactly what the implications of those hours of operation are. So they're that work is done prior to the recommendations to make sure that those are clearly defined and understood. Talk here about how to make your food program better and fresh with declining enrollment. So we want to set dining as a competitive edge, a tool to help with your recruitment and help. I'm not sure if this question had more to do with enrollment of the institution or just enrollment of students participating in dining, but we think if it's organized properly, it can do both. It can make it more compelling for those students living on campus and living on campus to frequent the venue more often, and as we gave examples earlier, give the school a competitive edge. Sharon here is, I see you've submitted a question, Sharon. Has student staffing been hard to achieve during the overnight hours? The answer is yes. Typically, it is harder to schedule people overnight. It's because of the obvious reasons. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. And I think the first thing we need to do is look at, what the requirements are, determine whether or not we have to make some adjustments in compensation for those hourly rates during those time periods to make it more appealing and more attractive to those students, include those in the labor calculations, and again, make sure that that's clearly defined and understood up front so that you can see the consequences of what's going to come out the other side in terms of the bottom line. If anybody else has a question, you can certainly either ask it or type it in. Here we go. Does your consulting firm work with institutions with contract food service providers? Absolutely, yes. Actually, most of the schools that I just mentioned have contractors. George Mason University has Sodexo. University of Ottawa has Chartwells. Simon Fraser University has Chartwells. University of New Mexico has Chartwells. The answer is yes. I mean, we work for the institution. We certainly collaborate with the operators. It's very much a process of inclusion, in no way an adversarial relationship. But we do work for the institution. We want to determine what is the optimum program for the campus, and then work with the campus and work with the operator so that the operator can successfully implement that program. The answer is yes. Any other write-in questions there?
Yeah. Yeah.
See here, there's can you make me a presenter? Let's see here. One of the challenges we're facing is a decline in all-you-care-to-eat dining halls. Our students gravitate to retail. Almost in every example I just gave, Simon Fraser, University of Ottawa, George Mason, University of Mary, Colgate University, students either en masse or in Montana State University, most recently and in particular, were gravitating towards retail, and quite frankly, the administration was, in some of those schools, were convinced that retail was the answer. In every one of those situations, because of the program we developed, and one of the reasons they say it's impossible is because it goes completely against the conventional wisdom that had been established that everything should go retail or predominantly retail. The reason we find in some cases it goes retail, and it would require some due diligence and research to get the answer to this, is because the value proposition is so limited in the all-you-care-to-eat. Limited hours, the limited day parts, the limited access, the way the meal plan is used or not used. And sometimes in extreme cases, students, I mean, gosh, I was in a school recently where they did have 19, 14, and 10 meal plans, and they had declining balance. And most of those were used as either equivalencies or declining balance in retail locations on campus. And I guess if you just looked at that, you would think everybody wanted retail. But when we dug a little deeper, we found out the reason they were using it that way was because the all-you-care-to-eat was not open when they wanted to use it. So the only way they could get what they wanted when they wanted to was to either use an equivalency or declining balance in a retail venue that happened to be open. So in many cases, it's not a rejection of the anytime dining venue that was previously an all-you-care-to-eat. It's a rejection of the limited hours, the limited menu, the limited access, the barriers associated with cost. So we don't see that as a trend. We see it as a, I guess if I was doing a version of Mythbusters, that would be one of the myths, that everything is going retail and all you care to eat or anytime dining is not valid on a campus. Because we've been able to develop programs that completely turn that around. Voluntarily, students choose to eat in those venues now, and it changes the game in terms of the college experience, the student experience, the value of attending that institution. Another question about increasing voluntary meal plan participation. Again, that comes down to a compelling value. Students want to stay on the plan. Dave May talked about it when now he's got close to 5,000 voluntary meal plans on his campus. When we did the work there 11 years ago, they had 6. Liberty University talked about selling an additional 500 to 700 voluntary meal plans to students living in Lynchburg to eat on campus after this new program. George Mason University talks about selling an additional 1,600, and this is to students who live in apartments with full kitchens. Dave May even talked about yesterday in Durham, New Hampshire, about how they've got 2,500 beds or rooms or beds for private developers have built, which he thought was going to really pose a problem for students living on campus. He's got 112% occupancy, and a significant percentage of those beds in Durham are empty because students are choosing to live on campus and purchasing anytime dining meal plans. And those that are living off campus, I think he said to the tune of about 60% of the upper class and living off campus in those apartments with full kitchens are purchasing voluntary meal plans. Another question had to do here with increasing the campus dining image and value to board and commuter students as well as to the university. Certainly about everything we touched on today talks about how we want to make dining a great value in terms of room and board and what a student gets. They don't have to worry about managing their meals each week. They don't have to worry about running out of money. Mom and dad don't have to worry about getting hit up for money because the dining hall is closed on weekends or Sunday night or Saturday night or 7 p.m. at night, and their son or daughter have to go and get some delivery or go off campus. The meal plan covers it. That goes a long, long way to improve the image in terms of what it's going to be like for their son or daughter to go to the campus, to have a 24/7 safe, wholesome environment. I'd say moms and dads, that kind of gets them where they live, to be able to communicate that during an orientation or with the material you send out. And we talked earlier about how students on board plans are voluntarily buying up to plans that are more expensive because they want to, because we create the value in the anytime dining combined with the retail on campus. We also talked about that college experience, that social richness as well, so it covers all of those. We're here to talk about, there was a question about student catering and the prices and the processes at Stevens Institute of Technology. We often look at developing 3 tiers of catering, kind of a high level, medium level, and quite frankly the budget level. And having that menu developed so that for student groups and for administrators who kind of have a shoestring budget, you might have to go and pick it up and clean up after yourself, but it's priced accordingly and it's made available to students as well as administrators. Okay, I got another question here online. Food cost is a big challenge for our operation. Is food cost higher since night hours? You may have more food waste. Our college is 40,000 students and we have 12,000 meal plans. Well, in almost every case, we've seen the cost of goods sold go down. So if you take your beginning inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory, even though students might frequent the venue more often on a daily basis, they consume less food. I gave you that example of Mark Craner. Mark Craner said one of his biggest concerns at George Mason when he went 24/7 was just that, a spike in food costs. He said, David, it went down. It's almost like when students, I think maybe that's true of the human condition. When you know you can always come back for seconds, you don't always come back for seconds. When you know you can just go in and get a bite and satisfy maybe a hunger craving and leave, or just come in and hang out with a friend and get something if you want or you don't want to, then the value shifts dramatically from how much can I get in terms of food with how much I have to get it with, to I can get whatever I want whenever I want, and even if I don't get anything, I could if I wanted to, and that right there has value. I mean, when we have declining balanced meal plans where we meet administrators who, claim to be the second coming of Sam Walton because at the end of each semester they have to bring in semis full of pallets of beverages or water or, $15 Rice Krispie bars so students can quote unquote burn through their unused Finding balance.
Between two hours.
Have students who have block meals, where students talk about giving away the block meals because they can't eat them all. So they find friends and they give them away, or they want to eat more of the meals, or they go to a lower meal plan, and because they go to a 10 or a 14 meal a week meal plan, they kind of game it so they go in really hungry and they leave really full. So it really encourages overeating. The anytime dining program and those meal plans do exactly the opposite. There's absolutely no incentive to game the meal plan to eat more food because you can always come back for seconds. And as a consequence, students consume less food. Your food cost stays the same or goes down per student. And again, as counterintuitive as that sounds, we've got about a couple of dozen clients who can attest to that fact. So on a school where you've got 40,000 students and 12,000 meal plans, I'm not sure what the program is there now, but I would see that there could potentially be a significant reduction in food costs with a program like this. We're coming up on we have about 10 minutes here before 3 o'clock. I know we budgeted about 40. Either about 13 people still on the call. So one last question here I'm going to try and answer what was submitted. And if nobody else submits any more in the chat box there, I guess we can wrap it up. Again, challenge selling voluntary meal plans to on and off campus. We have a tough time getting students into our late night venues. Again, we find that the flaw isn't the fact that you're open. The flaw could potentially be, or what we look to overcome is what do we need to offer and how do we need to offer it and how does the meal plan need to work in order to make that student feel there's a compelling value. We've interviewed thousands of students, hundreds of thousands probably in surveys over the past 25 years. We've got a pretty good idea what students react to in a positive and a negative way. We have to test that on a particular campus, but I guess it depends on the program. Again, the method of payment, the declining balance, the blocks, the anytime dining, the social aspect of it. Looking at that recipe and determining does this particular program on this campus at UNC Charlotte, how do we adjust the recipe, tweak the recipe to make it more compelling so the students want to go there, kind of aligning those planets. And when we do that properly, which is exactly what we do, I can't think of a situation where it has not worked. Because people have said, David, has this ever not worked? And the answer is the validity of the program has never not worked. There's been occasion where maybe the operator, whether it's a self-offer contract, didn't have the commitment to be open or staff it properly, but that's not because the students weren't coming and the students didn't want to come. That was a different issue. The value of the program as far as what's compelling and appealing to students, to this day, we have not seen a situation where it has not worked properly. We can talk more about that later. Any more questions in the chat box? Well, I want to thank everybody for participating today. I encourage you all, if you have more questions that maybe we didn't get to answer today, or if you'd like to speak a little bit more about something that's happening on your campus, email Josh. We'll set up a call between me or you and Josh if you'd rather talk to Josh. If you'd rather talk to me, I'd certainly make myself available for a call to answer those questions. Again, we believe this is the future of college and university dining. It's one of those things where after it's done, it's like that commercial. You hit yourself on the head and said, oops, I could have had a V8. This is so obvious now, but, that's after the fact. I guess the big hurdle is to get over the change and get past that status quo. And we're certainly an organization that commits completely to that process and helping you do that and making that case. So please look forward to those video podcasts of Mark Craner, David May. We're doing a few more with Patrick Jeunesse from University of Ottawa and Lori Helmer from Ferris and others. So those are coming. And I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you at the regional conferences. We'll be attending all the regional conferences over the coming weeks. Again, thank you all so much for participating, and I hope to talk to you or get to meet you face-to-face in person very soon. Thank you.